The meeting is, our meetings are recorded and they'll put up on our Revolution East Bay Facebook page and on YouTube in the next couple days. So here we go. Welcome, everybody. Tonight we're having a kind of meeting with different things going on. We're going to talk a lot about getting out to vote and people voting. It's amazing how many people have not voted yet, and we can still get some votes together. And we're also going to hear from 3 candidates that are running for District 4 in Berkeley. And we're going to have a couple other little reports here and there. I just asked Margot Smith if she could update us on what's going on in her campaign. And we're also going to hear from Assemblyman Ash Kalra, who has written, once again, a healthcare bill for California, and we'd like to find out how we can help him and get this happening this time. Anyway, so I think I'll stop now, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Susana and Cheri, who are co-chairs with me, and they're going to talk about voting and those kind of things for a little bit. Okay, Susana, do you want to start?
Thank you, Carol. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this Sunday afternoon. It's almost primary day. Our lives will almost go back to a little bit of normal here. Before we get started, I want to give you all a heads up. Some of you may have noticed that we haven't had a website that's been functioning for a little while. Well, I am happy to report that we have a brand new and improved ourrevolutioneastbay.org website. You can now pay your dues and donate to us. Every dollar is important. None of the stuff that we all do to help our endorsed candidates comes for free, unfortunately, except for maybe our shoe leather. So any donation that you guys give to our Rev East Bay literally goes directly into helping our candidates get elected, flyers, social media, texting, all of that stuff. So we are all volunteers. So we have zero overhead, other than a couple of tiny little things. So go check it out. I'll drop the URL in chat in a little bit as well. But the dues are $27 a month, or $5 for students.
A year.
Oh, sorry. Oh, wait, not a month. Sorry, a year. $27 a year for regular donations. But if you want to pay $27 a month, we are totally down with that. Or $5 for students. And if somebody wants to be a member and cannot pay, just reach out to one of us, because we'll make it happen. We just want everybody to be part of our movement and our quest, so to speak. So thank you for that. And then let's talk about voting. So I know probably most of us on this call are not real happy with what is going on in the world. We are in the middle of a genocide that we are desperately trying to stop, and our leadership is actually funding and facilitating that. So consequently, probably a lot of us aren't real jazzed about voting, but I want to tell you, it's super important, and here's why. State of Michigan just sent a huge message with their uncommitted vote. That vote more than doubled what their expectations were. The crew that was behind promoting that and making that happen, that was a huge message. That those uncommitted votes are by far plenty to cost Biden that election in that state. And by costing that election in that particular swing state, pretty much seals the deal for Biden. He will not be getting elected. Unfortunately, California, we do not have uncommitted on our ballot, and I'd like to find out how we can make that happen, because I think it should be an option in every state. There are a lot of states where it is an option. Washington State, for example, just earlier this week, Washington State's largest union put out a recommendation to all of its union members and anybody on the planet who wants to listen to vote uncommitted in Washington and to specifically not vote for Biden. So here in California, you've got multiple options. Personally, I left President blank. We don't really have, I don't know if we have a specific write-in spot on the ballot, but you can write it in pretty much anywhere on the ballot. Or you could vote for another candidate as a protest vote. I think the best way to protest is do whatever you want for president, but vote for Barbara Lee. If Barbara Lee gets more votes than Biden, that becomes the story. And that is a story we'd like to make. I'm a delegate with the California State Convention, and at the convention, Barbara Lee got more votes for endorsement than any of the other candidates. Okay, Amy, can you mute yourself? Thank you. Barbara got more votes than any other candidate. Unfortunately, the threshold's pretty high there. And with 3 Democratic candidates, it was darn near impossible for anyone to actually get the endorsement. But that story was Barbara Lee got the most endorsements of any of the 4 candidates that were running for Congress for California. So that was a huge story. So we'd kind of like to, see a similar story come out of California where we can send a message that we are not happy, this is not acceptable, that they need to find a new candidate, because if they don't, they are going to lose and lose badly. So important to vote. So definitely, if you haven't already sent your ballot in, send your ballot in. We want to ask everybody, talk to 5 people, text them, text everybody in your Facebook group, go, hey, I know you're not happy, but Barbara Lee is a well-deserved candidate. She will make amazing changes. She stands for the values that we all stand for. If you do nothing else, vote for her. We've got other great candidates that are Our Revolution, East Bay and national endorsed. Javanka Beckles. We've got, oh God, I'm going to forget like half of the people, but we've got amazing candidates who are endorsed. We also have Central Committee delegate candidates who have been endorsed by Our Revolution National. Alameda County has a whole huge slate made up of assembly district slates. Contra Costa County, which is where I'm from, we're supervisorial district. So we've got 3 sets of supervisorial districts that are contested races. 2 of them were not, and so everybody's already in, but 3 of them are very contested. And again, Our Revolution endorsed these candidates. So that's also important to vote for them. Monica Wilson, Chanel Scales Preston are 2 other endorsed candidates in Contra Costa County. Jennifer Steen, I know I'm going to forget people, so I'll let Cheri can fill in on all of the rest of the candidates and we can put it in our chat as well. But we've endorsed a lot of candidates. So super, super important to vote and get your friends to vote. I'll tell you a little story. So a few nights ago, I was really frustrated. It's like 1 a.m. because I don't sleep anymore. 1 a.m. I'm sitting at my computer and I'm frustrated, right? And I know why we don't want to vote. I know why the voting's down. I'm looking at the PDI report, which says 8% of ballots in Contra Costa County have even been turned in, and a ton of those are Republicans, right? And I'm like, what can I do? So I'm just frustrating, right? I'm posting, hey, you all, I know the whole situation sucks. I know nobody wants to vote for president. I didn't, but here, please vote for these candidates who will do amazing things, right? And listed them. One of my friends, who is a very well-respected activist within the community and knows a ton of people, literally responded and said, okay, I'll fill out my damn ballot. And I know she'll get the whole family and she'll tell friends to do it. So just making that request and saying, I get it. I'm where you are, right? I feel your frustration, but please vote for these down ballot candidates, because, they're the ones that make the difference in our day-to-day lives. It's whoever's president of the country, we can see now what we all want and what most of our elected officials want, and 80% of our party wants isn't really what's happening at the national level. But at the local level, you can talk to your people and go, hey, we got a problem with my kid's school. Hey, we got like this horrible road where I am and it's causing accidents, or it caused my car to get destroyed. Or we've got this horrible business that opened up that's like dangerous, right? You can go talk to these people. So this is why it's super important to do that. Let's see here. Trying to think if I forgot anything on the why it's important. So please, everyone, vote. Get your friends, get your relatives to vote. Text, call, Facebook, go, hey, just, we really need to get out the vote. I just got the latest PDI report, and while voting is up to 14% overall ballots returned in Contra Costa County, it's still a big chunk of those are Republican ballots, not Democrat ballots. Independents have come up as well. I think they were like 11%, but we all know independents do not just vote Democrat by default. A lot of independents will vote Green Party and will vote Republican. So just because you're independent or NPP doesn't mean that you're going to ask for a Democrat ballot and actually vote on that ballot. Another thing that I noticed over the last few days is we're starting to see an uptick in African-American, Latino, and Asian voters. that's a good sign for all of us, right? A lot of these are our people, right? These are people that we're getting out to vote for us. We're getting out to vote for Barbara Lee. So I'm seeing some positive signs. So we can do this. Ignore the polls. With the current situation, polling started being useless around the Bernie Sanders 2016 years. Now that we're vote by mail, that hasn't dialed in. The polling's been even more wrong. Look how wrong the polling is with Clinton versus Trump, right? I would think that with a genocide happening and so much turmoil within the country, these polls that you see out there that say Barbara Lee can't win, or whatever you're seeing out there, the Katie Porter thing trying to divide progressive votes, I personally don't know how valid that is, and it really kind of upsets me. If you stand for a candidate and you stand for a cause, and if you're committed to that and you worked really hard on it and you've been there, by God, you are there until the finish. I vote on stuff all the time that I know sometimes it surprises me, but sometimes I'll know this does not have a prayer in hell of flying, right? If I can get like 20 votes for this, I'm going to consider it a win. Sometimes I'm really surprised. Contra Costa Central Committee is more progressive, I think, than some other central committees. And we've made it happen. It wasn't that way 6 or 7 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I really think that people need to stick with this candidate, lay it all on the line. If there was ever a time to, as they say in the dance world, leave it all on the floor, this is the time. Stick with your candidate, vote for your candidate, literally knock on your neighbor's door if you know them well enough to not have them get annoyed with you, and ask them to vote. Cheri will cover some things that you can do to make it easier for people to vote. So Cheri, if I forgot anything, please chime in. I think I'll get off my soapbox now, but please, if you haven't voted, vote.
Okay, Susana mentioned that the candidates we're supporting. The best, am I showing up? The best place to find out what candidates we're supporting is our website, which is ourrevolutioneastbay.org. And then there's a /endorsements, or right on the front page, there's a great big button that you can push. So the most important thing to do is go there. Now, everybody in this room, I expect, has already voted. If you have not voted, go get your damn ballot right now. And look at it, look at those candidates, compare them to our endorsed ballot. If you find out that you don't have the president or the central committee on your ballot because you haven't looked at it yet, that means you are not registered as a Democrat. That doesn't mean, oh, I'm off the hook, I'm not registered as a Democrat. It just means you have to have a couple of more steps. So, and this is something to tell your friends and neighbors too. Oh, I'm not registered, I'm an independent. This is the only race every 4 years that's partisan in California. The only one that you get a Democratic ballot, a Green ballot, a Republican ballot, that you can't vote for whoever you want. So if they're registered, because a lot of my friends, I don't know about your friends, after Bernie lost, they said, I'm done with the Democratic Party. I'm going to register Green. I'm going to register purple. I am not going to be a registered Democrat. I'm going to send this protest. So if you're not registered as a Democrat, your ballot will not say Democratic, and it will not have the president on it. But more importantly, it will not have the Central Committee people who we're going to keep on talking about all day today. So if you don't have a Democratic ballot, if you made a mistake on your ballot, let's say you, out of just habit, you voted for President Biden and you didn't want to. If it's got your wrong address, if for your wrong name, whatever, if you've made a mistake on the ballot, if it's not correct, if it's not a Democratic ballot, or God forbid, you are not registered, period, you can go to the voting center in person and exchange your non-democratic ballot for a Democratic ballot and re-register. Register on the spot and vote. Okay, so in the chat, I have put up some stuff and I'm going to try to share my screen. This never works for me, but we're going to try it. So let's see where it is. Okay, this is what I want to share. Ah, did it come up? Oh my God. Is it there?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So the first thing is the link to our candidates. The next is there's a really good voter information that came out from the Secretary of State. That's the next one. Most of you don't need that because it's basically how to vote. All right. But the important one is you can go to this site, the Secretary of State elections, California voter, and you put in your name and some information, and you can see if you're registered, if you didn't get your vote, your ballot. Because some of your friends and neighbors that you're going to kind of convince to say, oh, I didn't get a ballot. Well, that's no excuse for not voting. Okay, so that you can see if you're registered. This is how you do same-day registration. And again, it's from the Secretary of State. It's not from, you know, any other group. It's from your government. And it'll tell you how to do same-day registration. It's really, you just walk in there and you register and they'll give you a ballot. So you need to be in person. All right, all of us, even the people who know how to vote and who have voted, if you want to see if your vote was counted, because sometimes there might be a problem. One of the #1 problems on everybody's ballot is people forget to sign the envelope. You need to sign that envelope. I personally use a lot of different signatures depending on if I'm in a hurry or if I feel like it's important. I'm slower. So usually the signature is sort of the same as your driver's license or the signature that you use kind of for important documents. At least that's with me. I have a different signature for that. That's what they check. So on the back of your envelope, there's a place for you to sign. Also on the back of that envelope is your voter number. And it's what do you call it? The Anyway, it's a unique number to you and to that ballot. So if you go to Where's My Ballot, which is California Ballot Tracks, TRAX.net, you can put in your information and they will say, yes, your vote was counted. If you sign up there, they will tell you, yes, your vote was counted. If it wasn't counted, they'll tell you if you can go to your register and say, hey, I did my ballot. What happened? Because a lot of people just plain don't sign the back of that envelope. All right. The next thing is right now, because we're so close to the election, the best way to get that vote in as fast as you can is to go by a drop box or the early voting signs. Both are equally probably as easy. The drop box, I think, is easy because you don't have to interact with anybody. You can just go. So the next, that WW, again, Secretary of State, is elections and polling places. So it will tell you, again, and it doesn't have to be the box that's in downtown Vallejo and you never get downtown. It can be anyone that's convenient to you. So just put in where you want to do it. All right. And then this last one is just kind of a general about elections and where things are. And it's just kind of it. That's why I put everything you were afraid to ask. So there's just a lot of other questions there. So the really important thing here is that there's all kinds of excuses not to vote, especially in this election. I'm going to talk a little tiny bit more about how important this vote is. The media, as Susana said, is going to let you believe that it's all over for Barbara Lee. Brain went nuts. It just isn't so. There are so many ballots out there that there's lots and lots of ballots out there. The people that you know that are like us are the people that have to vote. And a lot of those people are the people that are turned off right now. We're the activists. And we're kind of like, I don't like what's going on. What happens at the local level, the Javanka Beckles election, the other elections, especially in Alameda County, the supervisory rights, all of that affects where you live in your neighborhood, in your house practically. All of that is so important on who gets to be in that November election. And in fact, with the Jennifer Esteen vote, that actually, if she wins, she wins. So all of this is really important, especially the people that are running, like my cohorts, Carol and Michael and Ina, who are running for Central Committee. Both Susana and I have been on Central Committee. I've been on the Alameda. She's currently, and I'm a member of the Contra Costa now. The Central Committees have been traditionally a bastion of conservative corporate Democrats. They are not, and they've had that power because nobody pays attention to the Central Committee. Nobody pays attention to the ADEMs. We just let them do stuff. Oop, somebody's talking.
Didn't even know what type
May,
of kayak was.
could you mute, please? Okay, so what happens if the Central Committee is they control the money, they control who's endorsed, they control what legislature people are going to support, they can control who gets kicked up to the executive committee of the state and who gets kicked up to be the officers of the California Democratic Party. The California Democratic Party is the most powerful political organization in the country. And the people that are those leaders also have a big say in what goes on in Washington. If you remember that the people that decided that Bernie Sanders wouldn't make a good president, those are those same people. So if you want to change that kind of politics, you got to start at the ground level, which is the Central Committee. And there's some wonderful, wonderful people. In Alameda County, it's the people-powered progressives. And in Contra Costa, Susana,
Dems United for Progress.
Okay, say that again, please.
Dems United for Progress. And I'm dropping a link in chat. We've got all of the endorsements on the Our Rev website now.
Yeah.
So and Cheri, by the way, I dropped a lot of those links that you were talking about in chat. So go,
okay,
y'all grab links there.
Girls, grab the links. So every single vote is important. And that's why, as Susana said, we're asking you to not talk to strangers, not talk to your uncle who's a Trumper. We're asking you to talk to your friends. We're asking you to talk to the progressives. We're asking you to make a couple of phone calls, a couple of texts. Hi, I haven't seen you since the Bernie campaign. How you doing? Listen, I got some people. Have you voted? Do you know where your ballot is? I've got some people who I'm supporting. It's that simple. We're asking you to talk to the people who are us, not of them, all of the us. If you have any questions at all, anybody that's on this, our board, Carol, Susana, I, Michael, Richard, all of us can answer your questions, but there's no excuse for anybody that's on this call not to vote. And at least get 5 people to vote. And if we can do that, we can get the people that will make a difference in our future elected. End of commercial.
Awesome. I'll fill in with a little bit on Contra Costa because we differ slightly, but yeah, Cheri, great job. Thank you. Shout out to Ina Silva for all her work on the Contra Costa graphics and the Our Revolution East Bay graphics. She spent an insane amount of time and she's got mad skills, y'all. But don't be asking her to do anything because she's busy. But anyway, so yeah, so between Alfred and Ina, we have our secret weapon. Okay, so Cheri gave you the general overview of what happens at the central committee level. A little fun fact, you guys probably know this, but maybe not everyone. While CADM, the California Democratic Party, is a private organization and they can literally run that little fiefdom any way they want, central committees are not. Central committees are regulated by the state of California elections code. So there's a lot more regulation, rules, and all that fun stuff that go along with central committees than at the state party level. I know, makes no sense whatsoever. I swear it took me years to wrap my head around all of this political stuff. First, we had to find out how we got to vote. Then we had to get elected. Then we had to figure out how different things ran. Central committee was the last thing I tackled. And man, I still haven't figured it out. So Contra Costa works a little differently than Alameda in that we are organized by supervisorial district. And there are 5 supervisorial districts in Contra Costa County. So and less people than in Alameda County. So we've got fewer delegates running for specific roles. I first went to I first got elected as an ADEM delegate for Assembly District 11, which I used to live in. Now I live in 15, and I did not move. So I went to a central committee meeting in Contra Costa County and they were literally fighting, like screaming at each other. I'm like, I don't even have a vote. I paid $20, but I don't get to vote on anything. So why am I here? I went to two meetings and one Christmas party and said, yeah, no, this is a waste of my time. So I didn't go back until I got elected the second time for an ADEM delegate. And then I went back and started figuring out how things really worked. And I got elected to a role where I actually had a vote. I was a district director when they first put district directors in place and then kind of worked my way. I got recruited to be on the actual board. So right now I'm the first vice chair. And the cool thing there is you can be an officer for anything except chair if you're an associate member. You do not have to be a public ballot elected member to be an officer with the Contra Costa Democratic Party. In fact, several of us are not. So
and Susana, that's true. That's true in Alameda too.
Okay, yeah. So that was a fun little fact that we all found out when a group of progressives got together and decided they wanted to make some changes, and they had a couple of meetings and then called a few of us and said, hey, we want you to run for these positions. I was basically going to depart from everything central committee and ended up getting more involved in it. But it is important. I've seen major changes in Contra Costa since 2017 and the first time I walked into a meeting. I used to be the only person standing up there and I did this and I didn't care who liked it or didn't like it. I would talk about our revolution. I would talk about our events. I would talk about the Bernie stuff. I mean, he was a Democratic candidate running for president. I would talk about all that stuff. And then slowly more of my activist friends started joining and coming around and hanging out. And now our organization is far more progressive than I would have ever dreamed possible. We win on most major votes. It takes a while and we have to go roundabout and everybody has to throw their 2 cents in. But at the end of the day, I've even been surprised when, it's painful, but we actually prevail and people vote for the right thing. So we've definitely changed the entire landscape at that central committee. We now actually have a committee, an ad hoc committee that is in charge of working with activist groups, other outside groups such as Our Revolution and Swing Left and all of that, because they finally now realize that's where the power is. That's where the dedication and the passion is. That's where the boots on the ground are, because central committees, at least ours, is comprised when I first started going of a lot of people that are living in a world that no longer exists, to put it politely, and are just woefully uninformed about the realities of the world. They have no clue about the reality of a 20 or 30 or even 40-something-year-old's life in this country. frankly, I didn't either until I started knocking on doors for Bernie Sanders. And I met activists across the country, and I found out that activists couldn't buy insulin for their kids. So we kind of, had to fight past that, but we've actually done it. The two districts that were uncompetitive, which is my district, District 3, and District 5. Amy Slovic is also one of the people that got elected by acclamation, I guess. Our names aren't on the ballot because we already won. But out of the 8 people in those two districts, the vast majority of us are progressives and true progressives, people that have been endorsed by our revolution, people who are members of our revolution, people I see every day in my social media feeds that are posting and fighting for a ceasefire. So it's been major change. I am thrilled because, man, I felt pretty lonely. I used to duck for cover sometimes, but we kind of all hung in there, and we got more of us, and it's a much better place. So if you're in Contra Costa County or you know anyone, I dropped my email address. That's my actual real one, not my one that I give out to, people wanting stuff from me. So seriously, hit me up. I'll happy to, help you out, introduce you, tell you when the meetings are. We have a social media presence and a website that actually is pretty up to date these days, and has all of our committee member information and stuff. So Cheri, did I forget anything? You guys are probably sick of me talking by now, right? And I still have another segment to do. So buckle up. Okay.
Susana, is the other segment something you can do later in the meeting?
Yeah. You tell me when it is. It's the whole Gaza Palestine. Yeah. We need to have a break because I've talked too long.
Yeah.
Just tell me when you want me to do that.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Anyway, Cheri and Susana, thank you. You answered a lot of my things that I wasn't clear on, and I hope that a lot of people benefited. The bottom line, you guys, everybody in this room and all your friends, so tell them, needs to tonight call at least 5 people, and you can call 200 if you want, but at least 5, and get them to vote for Barbara Lee. Okay, so we are going to move on a little bit. We're going to move into the segment. We have 3 people here tonight that are going to speak about their qualifications. They're all running for the city council seat that was recently vacated, District 4. And after the election, we're not going to send out a ballot sooner, but if a couple days after the election, we'll send out a ballot to people that are actually paid participating members, and so they can vote. And it's real important when you get this that you open it and vote, because we're in business to endorse people. That's kind of what our biggest area of participation in the political world is, endorsing good candidates. Anyway, so we're going to start now. And the people we have here, we have Elana Auerbach, Soli Alpert, and Igor Tregub. And we're going to start with Igor, and he's going to be introduced by OREB member Richard Lee. Richard, go for it.
Great, thanks, Carol. So as Carol mentioned, our first speaker is Igor Tregub, and Igor has been a longtime member of our Rev East Bay. Many of y'all also know that he's the current chair of the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee. He's a longtime Berkeley resident and has been involved in community advocacy and activism in the East Bay and beyond for a very, very long time. Many of us, including myself, I would say, have seen firsthand the amount of work that he does, and he's so engaged with everything all the time, whether it's running the county party or fighting for solar or supporting organizations in the East Bay. He's just everywhere and very passionate about the work he's doing. And now he's running for Berkeley City Council District 4, which is Kate Harrison's former seat. And I'll turn it over to you, Igor. You have the floor.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me for a second. most groups give people like a minute and a half and cut them off. We're a little looser than that, so the candidates can have maybe up to 3 minutes if they need it to talk about who they are, and then we'll get into the questions. Sorry about that. I forgot to mention that. Welcome, Igor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you, Richard, and thank you, everyone, for everything that you're doing. I am taking your message to heart. I've been canvassing today since 10 a.m., rain or shine, and we'll continue to throughout the day. We have everything that we love is on the line, truly, this Tuesday. It is an honor to be here before you today to seek your endorsement for the seat. I have to say that it was very unexpected for me and shocking for Councilmember Harrison to resign. And I spent a week or two encouraging her to reconsider, given the important amount of work and voice that she has. But it is now a vacant seat. And I have a nearly 20-year history of serving the downtown Berkeley community, starting with my appointment by former. Oh yeah, I called you many times, at least several, urging you to reconsider. I started in 2006, appointed by former District 4 Council member Donna Spring to serve on the Commission on Labor, where I became chair before running for the Berkeley Rent Board. It has been, it's been an honor to serve to be a part of crafting almost every single piece of legislation that we have seen to keep renters housed. I ran on a platform then in 2008 for Berkeley that we can all call home. And it is even more true today, given the extreme housing unaffordability crisis that we have than it was then. I helped craft pretty much every ordinance and the campaign for it through the Democratic Party and the Sierra Club, everything from the vacancy tax to various housing affordability bond measures. And I chaired the oversight committee to make sure that hundreds of millions of dollars were properly disbursed and going specifically to affordable housing. I'm running on a platform of transparency, accountability, and democracy. Councilmember Harrison's footsteps are going to be ones that are very difficult to follow. But I will certainly do my best, and I have a track record of bringing people together to move progressive policies forward and ensure that they are passed. And one example of that was working closely with Councilmember Harrison on the building electrification ordinance that has now been the inspiration behind over 100 jurisdictions across the nation that have divested off of fossil fuels and ensured that renters, just like homeowners, are able to get access to clean appliances that are not going to poison their lungs and that are going to ensure that everyone has a safe, affordable place that they can call home. I look forward to answering your questions and would be honored to earn your support.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Igor. Could people raise their hand if they'd like to comment or ask a question? Okay, Carla. Carla West.
Okay, thank you. And thank you very much, Igor, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask if you could please let us know whether or not you support the Berkeley Tenant Protection and Right to Organize Act ballot measure. Thank you.
I do.
Okay, is that it on the answer? Okay, next, who else has their hand up? I'm not able to actually see from here.
Elana?
Joanna does, and Paola and Nagin.
Okay, so we'll go in that order.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, our revolution. Always happy to see you, especially after knocking doors. Hi, Igor. Good to see you as well. As a member of our revolution, I've been asked to ask you some questions. And the first question I want to ask you is about the ceasefire resolution that Austin, myself, and Soli authored that passed on November 1st at the Central Committee. Of course, it was a process to get it there, and I appreciated you working with me to create space for people to testify. There were hundreds of people who testified. And after all of that, you voted no on the resolution. And I wanted to ask you why you voted no. And now looking back and knowing what's happening still ongoing in Gaza, would you have still voted no?
Thank you so much for the question. As chair of the Central Committee, my role is to ensure that it is a safe, inclusive space for all. I support a ceasefire, and I have been very consistent in calling on the Biden administration for a ceasefire since practically day one. In fact, shortly after that resolution was passed by a narrow margin of 17-13, I joined elected officials like Jenny Wong, another Arab East Bay member, to craft a letter to the Biden administration in support of a ceasefire that was signed on by nearly 200 elected officials and party leaders. And while I wish that the Biden administration listened to us sooner, some of the things that we asked for in that letter are now starting to become the policy of the United States government. I wish it happened sooner. I was unfortunately not able to vote for the specific language in the resolution because there was some language there that was divisive and inflammatory to a number of members of our Central Committee. Again, as chair, I have an obligation to provide a safe space for all. I was the one that had to respond to 50 emails that came in after that meeting, which also begot a swastika on the Zoom, and trying my best to assure them that this is still a Democratic Party, that we need them and we need everyone to be a part of. As you know, Joanna, I worked tirelessly with you to craft alternative language that called for the same things, but did not include the language that was seen by a number of our members as inflammatory and divisive. But because the initial resolution passed, we were not able to get to that language. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Could I ask a quick follow-up question?
Make it quick.
Yeah, just what language was inflammatory and divisive? And if you were to become the Berkeley City Council member, I don't know if you've read the Berkeley People's Resolution calling for a ceasefire, but would you find that also inflammatory and divisive?
I will have to go back and actually, if you could send me the language, I'm happy to review it. And keep in mind that as chair of the Central Committee, and yes, I am Jewish, so this does hit me quite deeply as well. But it is also important that the Central Committee as a whole represent the membership where they're at. And so it is with that in mind, it is with where the community is at. That has been my approach to public service since over 20 years ago when I started my public service career in Berkeley.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question or next person. Nagin?
Okay.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today, and thank you all of you for what you do in this Our Revolution East Bay. I have a very quick question for Igor. Igor, you are running on the platform of transparency and accountability. As one of the members of the pro-tenant slate that was running it 2 years ago, who was nominated and elected by the tenant council and the rent board council, and also Our Revolution East Bay, I witnessed a lot of non-transparent actions on your part. I will read from because you were on the planning committee of the tenant convention. You had signed basically an endorsement pledge to, regardless of your personal or collegial connections with candidates, you will pledge to support, including vote for the party to support, and not take any action such as abstention that leads to the endorsement of someone running on another slate. So this was our slate, and you were actually the representative of Our Revolution East Bay on the planning committee of that rent board council. And during the candidacy, I witnessed you not going against the endorsement, endorsing Stefan, who was running on a parallel platform against our slate. And during the Renters Council, as you were the chair, you got them to vote for him over me. This affected that election, and somebody outside of the slate, for one of the very few and rare times, was elected over the full slate that was endorsed by that convention. And it was a blow to progressives. So I won't take any more of your time going into the depth of the deception, but I would question that transparency and accountability and ask you what that was all about.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know how much time we have. I wanted to clarify a couple of things. I did have the honor of being on the pro-tenant slate in 2008 and 2016. And I have been on the convention organizing committee since 2006. Somehow, and I don't have time to get into all the details, but somehow the process became a non-transparent. It became a process that I did not feel is accountable to the broader Berkeley community. And I, in good conscience, was no longer able to participate in a process that felt to me to be very insidery and non-transparent. I didn't endorse anyone outside of your slate. As you know, I gave money and an endorsement to every member of the pro-tenant slate. Well, at least money. As chair of the Alameda County Democratic Party, I was not able to issue an endorsement for anyone until after the endorsement process is complete. That was a request that was made to me by the progressive team that got elected to the Central Committee in 2020. starting with when I was vice chair and then chair, and I have honored it. And I have not issued a single endorsement outside of or after or until the Democratic Party weighs in.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Am I interrupting you? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I have my hand up.
Yeah, Paola said.
Let him finish.
To the best of my recollection, I did not endorse Stefan. I certainly didn't endorse Stefan until after the Democratic Party process was complete, when he was endorsed by the Democratic Party. Signing a form, look, I believe in democracy. I'm from Ukraine. Democracy is in my DNA. I would be happy to sign Soli's form or Elana's form. That is just what I believe, that everyone deserves to have access to be on the ballot, and then let the voters decide based on candidates' merits.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, this is Paola. I had my hand
okay,
up.
yeah, okay, and then I want to make a comment and we'll move on to the next person. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Paula.
great. Thank you, Igor, for joining us here. I have a question regarding you are one of the many hats you wear, and you are involved in many different organizations. You are an elected member of the Cal Renters Caucus for the State Democratic Party. I think you represent renters in Northern California. And so you being in this position, it would seem to me that you would support candidates who support protections for tenants, especially candidates who are coming before the Alameda County Democratic Party Central Committee seeking our endorsement, and these candidates who have a goal to bring rent control to their community. Early last month at our last Central Committee meeting, we had 3 candidates come before the committee asking for endorsement of the Democratic Party, and one of the questions was regarding rent control. And there was one candidate who openly expressed supporting rent control. Yet, when it came time to vote, and remember, we can talk a lot of stuff, but it's what your votes and how you vote that counts, because that really shows us where you're at. You, instead of voting for this candidate, you chose to endorse a candidate who didn't support rent control, who said, oh, I really like it, but I don't know how we're going to pay for it, which we all know how it works. And especially you know how it works because you're a former rent board commissioner and you know how Berkeley rent control ordinances run. So you endorsed this candidate, and the candidate who actually who had endorsed rent control lost the 60% vote by 1 vote. So can you explain why it seems to me that you take off your Cal Renters hat off when it comes to Central Committee, and is this as an example, and not support a candidate who does support rent control? Thank you.
Certainly. I did vote for the pro-rent control candidate for mayor in San Leandro in 2022. The candidate that you're speaking about now, Paola, and apologies, I'm on 1% charge on my phone, so I'm going to turn off the camera, and hopefully this will allow me to finish. I had a feeling that Zbeyde Viveros Walton, who I have worked with when she worked in a Berkeley office. First of all, I know her to be someone who does support rent control. Second of all, she was going to be, in all likelihood, the most likely candidate to be appointed by the city council. And so it is important to me. Everything that I've ever done has been around bringing people together and bringing people along. I'm already looking forward to having conversations with Zbeyde educating her about how rent control is paid for and must be paid for by Soli Alpert, that it's not the enormous cost that she made a statement it might be. It is also important to note that SPAY Day was supported by Selena Reyes, the outgoing council member for that district. And Selena, as you know, was really the architect of bringing rent control to San Leandro. So honoring the outgoing council member's wishes is really important to me. And I have worked as NorCal Vice Chair, not the chair, the NorCal Vice Chair of the Condemned Renters Council throughout the last 4 years that I have served in that role, on moving renters ordinances forward, moving just cause forwards, combating things like the utility tax that PG&E wants to impose on renters, charging a single mom earning less than $40,000 a year, another $30 to $70 a month surcharge. And I'm looking forward to bringing that same sense of working with everyone, meeting folks where they're at, but bringing them towards a place where they can share our progressive values. I'm looking forward to working with all of you as well. Thank you so much.
All right. I think you're about to run out of time. Thank you very much, Igor. And we're going to move to the next candidate now. Okay, let me see. Cheri, were you going to introduce Elana?
Cheri, you're on mute. Cheri, you're still on mute.
Stopped it. Okay. All right. Okay. Are we all right now?
Yep.
Okay. I connected with Elana Auerbach, who's running for the Berkeley City Council also. I connected with Elana during the Javanko Beckles campaign. And the word I think I would use to describe Elana is empathetic, in that kind of super hero kind of a way. She sees inequities and injustice in Berkeley and in elsewhere, and she fights for the most vulnerable among us. She supports the repeal of Costa-Hawkins, a guaranteed income, and public banking. Elana, I would like to know more about you, and I'm sure our membership would like to know more about you and what your plans are for the Berkeley City Council.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Cheri. I appreciate that. And thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure. It's really a pleasure. We, as you all know, are at a crossroads as a species. With over 100 armed conflicts raging around the world right now, a genocide in Gaza being live streamed, and the continuously widening wealth gap. If we're not careful, y'all, we're going to end up where we're headed. And I don't think any of us here want that. So how does humanity make a shift? How do we change the future? We begin by doing things differently. We begin by making different choices. We begin by electing leaders who champion the will of the people. We need leaders who have the backbone to go up against the status quo and the fear-mongering that dominates public discourse and bring a message of love, a message of community, and a message of hope. Leaders who bring a vision of not how things are, but how things could be. I am in this race to bring transparency, accountability, and integrity to our local government. I believe in actual affordable housing, revitalizing our small business community in our downtown, tenants' rights, workers' rights, community-centered public safety, and a safe, livable, and sustainable environment. I am very well qualified for this position. I have a degree from UCLA in math and economics. I had a career in Wall Street in commercial real estate finance. There, I saw into the belly of the beast of greed and resigned before those golden handcuffs got too tight. I then trained as a mediator and had a mediation and facilitation business. I am a deeply spiritual person. I'm a practicing Jew. I have a daily meditation practice that I've had for 20 years, and I'm also an ordained priestess. For the past few years, since George Floyd was murdered, I had a rude awakening to find out about Kayla Moore. I did some research into the Berkeley Police Department. I'd been living in Berkeley for since 2006 and thought, what's going on here? And then I realized that I had been living in Berkeley when a Black transgender woman was killed in her own apartment when the Berkeley Police Department was responding to a mental health call. And I was shocked and appalled at myself and my ignorance. So I dove in headfirst and have been in the deep end ever since, working tirelessly to make Berkeley better. I've been involved in reimagining public safety efforts and police oversight, tending to our unhoused community, and connecting them with resources and services. I've worked for tenants' rights, served on the BTU steering committee, where I started the Homeowner Tenant Coalition to stop further gentrification. I've advocated for workers' rights and seniors' rights, organized to save People's Park, attended countless city council meetings and other city meetings, and organizing for a ceasefire, both in the city of Berkeley, at city council, in general, on a global level, and also with, I'm a member of the Berkeley Unified School District Jewish Parents for Collective Liberation. Past few years, I've co-authored a column in the Berkeley Times called Reimagining Berkeley that addresses many of the issues our city faces and calls out the deception and lack of integrity that's rampant in our local government, and then asks us to envision something better. I have the maturity and the skills to hold our city management accountable and not back down until we've repaired the broken systems and begun to build bridges of trust and respect between the leaders, between those who work in our city, and between our community members, and between those who work in Berkeley. I want to create a more compassionate, inclusive, equitable, just, and really all around better Berkeley. It's time to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots and ensure that everyone has the basic essentials to care for themselves and their families. Liberating ourselves from the chains of the dominator, colonizer, capitalist model begins right here and right now. Should you give me the honor of your endorsement, I promise you, I will be that change agent who is committed to liberate Berkeley from the status quo, to focus our city's resources on the needs of the people who live and work here, not special interests. And I will be a voice of and for the people, and I will definitely make you proud. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you very much, Elana. I so far see one hand up. Nagin, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. Wow, what a speech. Thank you, Elana. I have a question because you and I were writing these articles on reimagining Berkeley, and you found out about a very non-transparent situation in the city of Berkeley regarding the Motorola contracts that were against some of the principles that we should stand for as a sanctuary city. And I want you to give a little synopsis of what happened and how far you took it, and now at the level that it is well known to the whole city. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, back when Trump was president, the city of Berkeley passed a beautiful piece of legislation, an ordinance called the Sanctuary City Contracting Ordinance, which said, or still says, because it's allegedly still effective, but you know, that's questionable if it's actually implemented. it says that the city of Berkeley will not do business with an entity that does business with Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, right, with ICE. And so what happened was, I don't remember exactly the dates, but a few years ago, BPD needed radios. They needed new radios. The radios weren't working. They were no longer compatible with the new technology. Okay, well, there was no RFP that was put out. And all of a sudden there was a $6.6 or $6 million item on the agenda, on the consent for $6 million to go to Motorola for these police radios. Motorola does business with ICE. They do a lot of business with ICE. I wrote an article about this. It was in the Daily Cal, and there was I've got to get all of the details here, but there, Kenwood. That's right. So there was a man who was a salesperson for Kenwood Radios who contacted the city council and said, by the way, because the letter came out like the day before the council meeting when they were due to vote on this. And I see former council person Kate Harrison nodding her head here. And he sent a letter saying, hey, I work with Kenwood. We have radios. They're compatible with the whole county. We don't do business with ICE. You don't need to breach your sanctuary city contracting ordinance if you do business with us. Well, they just pushed it through and ended up, buying those radios and making all sorts of excuses as to why they needed to get those radios. And essentially what happened, it was, more details are coming back. It was in January when Motorola first gave the city manager a bid, and then in September or October is when the city manager finally brought it to the council, which created an artificial crisis because the other contract for radios was going to end at the end of October or something. So it was this time crunch that the city manager had to insist that the council vote for this, or otherwise we're not going to meet the timeline of the contract. So excuse me for not having all of the specific details, but the bottom line is they made this beautiful ordinance and then didn't stick to it. And then even more recently, and I'll finish with this, there was another one. It was actually the night that Kate Harrison resigned. There was something else on the consent and it was with Motorola again, or another entity that did business with ICE. I brought it up. I said, I even did some due diligence and found that, okay, there's probably nobody else who can do this, but at least if there's nobody else, this is what the ordinance says, if there's no other entity and they have to do business with an entity that does business with ICE, then the city has to have a waiver. Our city attorney has to write a waiver on it. I brought that up in public comment, and they just went ahead and waved it through. Councilmember Harrison abstained or voted no against that. She said no, but all the rest of them just waved it on through as if, what does it matter? As if they're making a mockery, basically, of their own legislation.
Just one additional thing on that. The transparency in the system with which the city government is running is the question, and one of the reasons why Councilmember Harrison stepped down. I just want you to talk about that aspect of this whole thing. How many times you wrote the letter, how many times it was brought up, and their response.
Yeah, yes. I mean, yes, for so many issues, and I have letters in my draft inbox right now that I'm waiting to send after the election on Tuesday, because there are so many things that the city does and never follows through and never follows up on. So yes, it's constant right now and very frustrating.
Great, thank you. We're going to go on to the next question. Matthew, you have a question or comment?
Yes, hi Elana. Good to see you. I think both yourself and Soli, unlike Igor, I think both yourself and Soli really do represent the values of our Revolution East Bay. My question is, you and I are both Jewish. And we heard from the previous candidate that like voting against ceasefire resolution because it would be controversial and make some people uncomfortable. You know, if you're out in the city council, you will be asked to pass the people's ceasefire resolution to stand up for against genocide, like the majority of the California Democratic Party, the Alameda County Democratic Party did, and the Rent Board did. Do you think it's more important that we make sure everybody is comfortable, nobody feels uncomfortable, or do you think that it's more important that we take action to stop a genocide, to do every little bit that we can to stop a genocide? That's my question for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. Folks, we are in a moment where we cannot be comfortable. Like it is just not okay, or we're going to end up, like I said, where we're headed. So I absolutely will bring the people's resolution to the council. I will support it. I support a ceasefire. I've been calling for a ceasefire since October 7th. If Israel, the so-called Jewish state, and I call the so-called Jewish state, if it were actually practicing Jewish traditions, there would have been a Shiva. There would have been some mourning when the horrors that took place on October 7th. If there had been a pause to sit Shiva, to reflect, to grieve, things would have been a lot different. So this is not a Jewish state. This is a so-called Jewish state. It's that, and that's a whole nother issue. But yes, I will absolutely support. And people are going to be uncomfortable. People are very uncomfortable. And there is a lot stirring in the Berkeley Unified School District right now with some Jewish parents who rabid ultra-nationalists who have put together a lot of false allegations against the school about what's happening in the school. They got the Brandeis Institute to issue a statement last week. They filed a lawsuit. And so I am part of another group of Jewish Berkeley Unified School District parents who are for collective liberation, who are countering and shining a light on the lies and working with, you know, attorneys and other things to just show this is the age-old conflation of criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. No, we need to unwind that, you know. So there's a lot going on, you know, here in Berkeley with regard to this issue, and it's awful. And I am a warrior of truth and unwilling to back down until like I said, I'm a priestess holding the light high. And I really feel like we are at the precipice of something new and new change. And so, but we have to have the courage, each of us, to do something different. And me running for council is something different. And I invite you to do something different and trust someone who's not part of the political spectrum and who's somebody like me to come in and be a leader with your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I saw Kate Harrison's hand up. Did you have a question, Kate, or you just hadn't taken?
No, I think Elana answered it. Thank you very much, Elana.
Okay, we have time for one more question, if there is another question.
I don't see any hands, Carol.
Okay, great.
So maybe pick up some time.
Paula.
Yeah, I do have a question. Thank you, Elana, for coming. Can you share a little bit about your experience on Wall Street and how that experience has you know, will play a role in your ability to be an effective city council member? What are you bringing here? What what do you bring here that the other candidates don't have that would benefit the community? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Paula. Well, specifically, working on Wall Street was a trip. Great skills, great skills around finance and understanding spreadsheets and budgets and all of that, and seeing the level of greed and that it's just really a game. And how so many people, I was a young person, I was in my 20s when I was working on Wall Street. And I really felt, I remember walking around bereft, feeling like, how am I gonna have healthcare if I quit my job? And so it gave me like an insight into, why we need universal health care, why we need actual living wages for everybody. And so what I'm going to bring is a lot of life experience. I haven't just had one career. I've had like 3 different professions. And I'm going to bring a depth of spiritual awareness. And I spent a decade teaching for the Sanctuary of the Open Heart, which is our mission is to awaken the heart of humanity one heart at a time. And I taught this year-long immersion into the sacred feminine archetypes. And so bringing the practical and the unseen and the mystical, bringing all of it into the cauldron to actually manifest and realize equity and justice and a community where everybody is taken care of and where everyone has their needs and that they can contribute their unique gifts and their genius. And what I see is that vision of Berkeley creating that here, that then becomes an example of that rippling out to inspire communities, cities all around the country and around the world. So I feel like I bring a vision too and a passion for what I know is possible. So thank you, Paula, for that question.
Thank you very much, Elana. Okay, we're going to move to our third and final candidate for tonight, Soli Alpert. And Soli's going to be introduced by Michael Chang.
Hi, Soli. Very appreciative that you can come, but I'm going to introduce you somewhat differently. People can Google your name and see all you can have done, all these wonderful things, but I'm going to do this from a more personal level. It was the winter of 2015. This fellow by the name of Bernie Sanders decided to run for the president. He said, we have to get money out of government. That really rang a bell in my mind and in my body. So I said, I got to help this guy win. So one day I saw a poster that says, come campaign for Bernie to this place on University Avenue. So I went there with a lot of trepidation. It turned out to be an unused space. I went in there. I didn't know what to expect. What am I supposed to do? And turned out to be a phone banking event. I've never done phone banking. I was a passive participant in democracy earlier on. So at that moment, I became an active participant. The first person greeted me was, guess who? Soli Alpert. He sort of held my hand, described to me what we're doing, why we're doing this. I can see and feel in his passion and his action that this is really a worthwhile activity. So from that point on, I became an active participant in democracy. So Soli Alpert, thank you very much for leading me into the right path. So please go ahead and tell us what you can do for the city of Berkeley.
Oh, thank you so much. That warmed my heart a lot. Yeah, well, I'm Soli Alpert, and as Michael said, I got started in Berkeley politics with UC Berkeley Students for Bernie. We had the largest weekly phone banks for Bernie in the country, that was hosted by the UC Berkeley Students chapter, and it was really so wonderful because it was not just students by ourselves, but it was students with community. We had people of all ages, lots of seniors coming and working together to get Bernie elected in 2015, 2016. Unfortunately, we did not succeed. But from there, UC Berkeley Students for Bernie became the Progressive Students Association, and I got involved in local politics. And one of the first campaigns that I started on was Kate Harrison's campaign for Berkeley City Council in 2017. And I was thrilled to work on her campaign to get her elected, and then work in her office as a legislative assistant. And then myself ran for the rent board in 2018 and was elected and re-elected in 2022. And also proudly have been endorsed by Our Revolution for all 5 of the elections that I've run in. I've been endorsed by Our Revolution twice for the rent board, twice for ADEM, and once for Central Committee. Very happy not to be running for Central Committee this year, pass the torch. But I'm very happy that multiple members of Our Revolution are on the ballot and will be hopefully elected to the Central Committee this time around. And I'm also proud to be endorsed by Kate. I'm a big supporter of Kate in her race for mayor. And while I was surprised when she resigned, I understand, because City Hall is a mess. And there is a deep toxic culture of lack of accountability, both from some council members and from some senior management. And Kate has been fighting against it, and I've been fighting with her against it, and it's been getting harder and harder, unfortunately, over the past 2 years. And so I'm really looking forward to not just being elected myself, but if I'm the only one who gets elected this year to the council, I don't know what I can do by myself. But I'm so also glad that our revolution has endorsed Cecilia, so that if me and Cecilia and Kate all get elected to the council, we can be a solid block, voting for change, voting for progress, voting for transparency and accountability. Just a few other people who've endorsed me. I'm proud to be endorsed by Aisha Wahab, state senator, Carol Fife, our Oakland City Council member, and I've been endorsed by all 7 members of the Rent Board, other than myself, who were endorsed by our revolution and the tenant convention. And I think one of the unique things that I bring to this race of all the candidates running is I have a track record of delivering progressive policy change. I was proud to help write with Councilmember Harrison the Fair Workweek Ordinance, which gives groundbreaking national standard, a new national standard in labor protections for shift workers, giving shift workers rights around hiring and scheduling. We wrote that when we first got elected in 2018, and it took 5 long years of work to get that from her office to the council, where it finally passed. But it was worth it. And I think that what really made it worth it for me, right after it passed, I was sitting in Eureka, some folks know Eureka downtown, talking to some of the waiters there about how they were, because of this law that we passed, going to have new rights and new protections in their workplace. I'm proud to have helped write the vacancy tax, which our revolution campaigned for and endorsed and passed with over 60% of the vote in the 2020 election, or 2022 election, I can't remember now, which taxes speculators who keep their buildings off the market for profit instead of for housing, and people who leave homes dilapidated and vacant instead of providing community. And I'm proud also to be an active member of the labor movement. When I was a legislative assistant for Kate and another council member, I organized my colleagues, my other legislative assistants, into joining the city union. And we overwhelmingly voted to join the union. I was a bargaining team member, a steward, and a delegate to our Alameda County COPE for SEIU 10-1. And I was also proud to work in Kate's office to increase our affordable housing requirements for the city, to require that for-profit developers include a higher percentage of their buildings as affordable housing for our community. And so I think that's what I bring, really, is this progressive track record, both working with our values, but also getting things done. And I think the most prominent of that, we've heard a lot about tonight about ceasefire, and I really want to stand on my record on ceasefire. In 2021, some of you may be familiar with Sheikh Jarrah, a neighborhood in East Jerusalem, an Arab neighborhood that was attempted to be ethnically cleansed by Israeli settlers. And I wrote and introduced a resolution opposing that action and calling out ethnic cleansing and apartheid in Israel. And when the Rent Board adopted that resolution, we became what I believe is the first elected body in the United States to recognize apartheid in Israel. I was proud to author the Rent Board ceasefire resolution the month before. And I'm also proud to have been a co-author along with Elana Auerbach, who was just on the call, of the ceasefire resolution that passed the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee. And so I want to, just be clear. I think that I understand people are uncomfortable with this conversation around ceasefire. And I want to be clear, actually, the words that people were uncomfortable with, I think it's not been said. The words that people were uncomfortable with in our ceasefire resolution were genocide and apartheid. Those were the words that people didn't like. And those words make me uncomfortable. Genocide is not a fun thing to talk about. Apartheid is not a fun thing to talk about. But we do not avoid those difficult conversations because they make us uncomfortable. Because they make us uncomfortable, it is that much more important to talk about. Because we know we are here in the belly of the beast. It is our money, our taxpayer dollars, American weapons that are going to funding this war, funding this atrocity. It is our responsibility and our, our obligation. Whew, sorry, I've got a little bit of asthma, but to stand up to that. So I'm really excited. I'm hoping to earn your guys' endorsement for a 6th time. And I am hoping to work with you all. And yeah, I'm happy to answer your questions.
All right, thank you, Soli. I don't see any hands up. Come on, you guys. I mean, there's-
Paula's hands up.
Okay, Nikan, am I saying your name right? Please unmute.
Oh, my hand isn't up.
No, Paola is and Matthew.
Oh, okay. Okay, Paula, and then Matthew.
Okay, great. Thank you, Soli, for coming. And you know, I understand that you were once on the steering committee of our revolution. And of course, you're a great supporter of Bernie Sanders. So as you mentioned that you have a lot of endorsements already for this race. It's quite an impressive array of political endorsements. I saw what you posted on X, but there is one endorsement that is glaringly missing, and that's of AC Transit Director Jovanka Beckles, who, by the way, you are not endorsing in your position as a Rent Board Commissioner for her bid for state Senate. So I have 2 questions. One, could you explain to us why you have not sought out AC Transit Director Beckles' endorsement for your race for City Council? And 2, although it is down to the wire, can you please explain to us why you have not endorsed AC Transit Director Beckles for her run for state Senate? As I'm aware, Director Beckles did ask you for that endorsement. And we, of course, we all know that Jovanka is the Our Revolution endorsed candidate for the state race nationally as well. You know, she has received Bernie Sanders' endorsement 2 times, and she has a proven track record of not only fighting for workers, both at AC Transit and in Richmond, but she's also big champion for tenants because, you know, she wrote the legislation for rent control in Richmond, and we got rent control in Richmond for a city to do so in 30 years. And of course, like you, she is a diehard union member and of course a ceasefire supporter. So also explain to us why you have not endorsed her. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you exactly, Dan Kalb, Jovanka Beckles, Jesse, Catherine, they all called me and asked for my support. And I told them all the same thing, that I was waiting for SEIU 10-1 to make its endorsement. That I feel like I really, along with Our Revolution, have 2 really critical political homes in the East Bay DSA and SEIU 10-1. That those 2 organizations have been consistently the ones that have brought about really transformative change in Berkeley and in the East Bay. And so I wanted to wait for those 2 organizations to make their endorsements. And those organizations split. SEIU endorsed Catherine, and East Bay DSA endorsed Jovanka. And I am absolutely committed to getting whoever is not Jesse in the top 2 elected. That I'm, if it's Jovanka or if it's Catherine, I will, the minute we have that result, I will endorse whoever that is. But as a member, as a steward for SEIU 10-1, and a lifelong, and a member of DSA since 2017, I was put in a very difficult position. I didn't want to go against either of those groups. I've been a very, obviously I was staff on Jovanka's 2018 campaign, unpaid staff, just below staff level, and worked for her to get elected to the assembly. But I want to be realistic. I don't know who's going to be in the top 2, and I'm very excited for either of those 2. We need to beat Jesse.
And why have you not sought out her endorsement for your race for city council? Because you've already gotten a whole bunch of endorsements from city council members from outside.
Yeah, sure, I can answer that question.
So
I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to ask for her endorsement if I haven't endorsed her yet. My plan was to wait until after the primary.
Okay.
Because yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Carol, Kate has her hand up.
Yeah.
And I think also, she didn't put her hand up, but Sudhya wanted to ask a question, I believe, as well.
Thank you very much for being here, Soli, and thank you, Elana, as well, for your answers on ceasefire. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your plans, Soli, for how you would approach ensuring real affordable housing in Berkeley and tenant protections. What are some of the policy approaches you would take to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is no substitute for money, unfortunately. We need to pass an affordable housing bond measure, another affordable housing bond measure. We passed one. We need to do it again. I'm also committed to cracking down on loopholes. In my time at City Hall, God, the number of tricks that developers play to try and get away with not building affordable housing is really just unending. When Kate and I were on the council, there's the lot line loophole which plagued us for years, where developers divided up their project to pretend they were smaller than they are. So I'm committed to increasing our affordable housing fees. We were, like I said earlier, one of the first things that Kate did when she got elected was increase the Affordable Housing Trust Fund fee and increase the inclusionary requirement. When council recently changed the fee structure, they also discounted the fee for no apparent reason. I opposed that. Kate was, I think, the only vote against that. And I would revisit that and try and raise that fee. I support TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. I'm proud to be an endorser of TOPA. And I want to pass that legislation so that we can work with our nonprofit partners to convert existing market rate housing into affordable housing. I am dedicated to rent control and tenant protections. I'm proud to be one of the authors of and one of the two proponents of a measure pending before that we're hoping to gather signatures for, that would strengthen our rent control protections and also allow tenants to formally create tenant unions and organize and demand better from their landlords. There is no one solution to our housing crisis because it's not a local problem. It's a statewide problem. It's a national problem. But there are things we can do locally. One piece also is the UC. The UC is both a major cause of our housing crisis in Berkeley, and also could be, if we put pressure on them, part of the solution. But they have not been held accountable by the Berkeley City Council so far, despite your efforts and many 8-1 votes. The university demolished a rent-controlled building in Berkeley and did not replace those units, despite what normally would be required of a developer under state law. But because they're a state agency, they were not subject to those rules. So I want to work with UC when they're willing to work with us, but also hold them accountable when they're not on housing and on tenants' rights. And I'm also interested in exploring a progressive transfer tax. Transfer tax, business transfer tax was adopted in Oakland and in San Francisco. I would support those measures to raise money from businesses to help pay for housing and the homeless services. To the question in the chat about holding UC accountable, you're right that, Paula, that there was nothing that the rent board could do about those units. There was something the council could do, right? The council was involved in a lawsuit with the UC and ended that lawsuit with no mention of Walnut Street. And I opposed the settlement. I don't think it was strong enough. I think it should have included provisions around the demolition. So I don't believe that there's nothing. I disagree that the council can't hold UC accountable. I think the council has refused to hold UC accountable. I think they can if there was a political will to do so. Would I strengthen TOPA? Absolutely. I object to many of the ways that it's been weakened by the council. I think that the version Councilmember Harrison has introduced is solid, and it would be, with this council majority, probably the best we could get. But if we get stronger council members on the council who will vote for a stronger ordinance, I would absolutely be supportive of strengthening of it.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and I believe Matthew had his hand up.
Hi. So as I said earlier, I think both you and Elana both meet the stand for the values of our revolution, and as well as a lot of the other organizations you all listed, like the Berkeley Tenants Union and East Bay and Democratic Socialists of America. And I just want to also say, that both of you are supporting progressive candidates for state senate. Elana is supporting Javanka Beckles quite strongly. You are split between Javanka and Catherine, as a lot of folks are. Third candidate in this race, however, Igor is supporting Jesse Arreguín, who rolled back rent control, said that he would not, to the California Democratic Party's Renters Council, he wouldn't take money from the California Apartment Association. That was a lie. Took it. Supporting the only non-progressive candidate in this race. So I just want to note that. My intention had been to ask you the same question that I asked Elana about, about the ceasefire and about what you try to focus on making people comfortable or stopping a genocide. But you did kind of already answer that. So I was wondering if there's any, I guess if you, I wanted to ask you both the same question. Is there anything you want to add to your thing?
Yeah, I mean, to talk about ceasefire, it's difficult because I've had a lot of hard conversations with people about this topic as a Jewish American. It's not an easy topic to have a conversation about. And I think that there are, elders in my community. I'll just tell a story. I have two moms. Grew up in lesbian moms in San Francisco, and so I have lots of half siblings, and I'm lucky to have one of those families live in Berkeley. And the mother of those half siblings, she's kind of like my aunt, and she's also Jewish. And I was talking to her about the work I've been doing around ceasefire, and I showed her a speech that I gave, if not now, had an event on the City Hall steps, and I spoke to them. And I showed her the speech, and she, was totally thrilled with my speech until I said the words genocide and apartheid. And then she said, oh, it was so great before that, but I'm just, when you say those words, it turns people off. It makes people uncomfortable. And it made me so sad because she has I think that in many ways she has very strong progressive values. But I understand where a lot of Jews come from in feeling like, attacking Israel, quote unquote, attacking Israel, puts a target on Jews' back. I appreciate that, but I think that's the wrong framing. It is when the government of Israel claims to act on behalf of Jews and commits these atrocities that puts a target on Jews' backs. And so, I know that this race is going to be ugly around this topic. I've been sent a screenshot from a group chat that talks about organizing to oppose the anti-Zionist takeover of District 4 in reference to me. So I know that there are going to be people who will come after me. We'll see. So far, they've not deigned to call me an anti-Semite, though I'm sure they're going to call me a self-hating Jew. But when it comes to these kinds of things, there is not. We have to stand up. We have to do what's right, and we have to stand with justice around the world.
Okay, we have one more. I know I had said I'd cut it off, but our next speaker isn't here yet. Nagin.
Yes, Soli, I wanted to ask you about where you stand on People's Park and how you would hold the UC accountable. They've spent millions of dollars on a 3-day, I don't know the exact number, but it's beyond belief, on their 3-day excursion. And I'd want to see how you're going to keep them accountable and what you're going to do to bring People's Park back to the people, because I haven't seen you in the organizing rallies and around that too much. Just about what you've been doing, I'd like to catch it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the situation at People's Park is atrocious. And I was there at like 4 a.m. when they shut down the park, trying to get in and see constituents. I know many of you know Jonah Gottlieb, who is active in this space. He was arrested. I drove to pick him up from jail along with a number of other students at 5 a.m., where he was released without charges in Oakland. There was a lot. It's funny. So much happened that day, but very publicly. So much also happened in the days preceding it that was not public. We had a little bit, folks like Cecilia Lunapara and Nathan Meisel and myself were working with Kate Harrison to try and really publicize what we thought was coming down the pike about People's Park, about this massive police action. And Kate worked with Cecilia to write a resolution to the city council that opposed the use of tear gas and these kind of war tactics against protesters. That was, of course, blocked by people at the council. So, I worked to try and I helped write the letter and helped get it to the press that this was coming down the pike. People's Park, whatever you think of the housing development, and I'm mixed about it. I think that on the one hand, I would much rather have homeless folks in Berkeley sleeping in affordable housing than on the streets. But on the other hand, whatever you think of the housing, it is not worth this level of police violence to achieve it. And not only that, not only the police violence, but also the clearly unconstitutional actions of UCPD. They imposed a 4-block blockade. People were asked for their IDs to get to their apartments. Like, it is mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling. And I think this also goes to kind of the corruption. I don't want to say corruption, but the abuses that are going on within City Hall. that our city manager and our mayor were working with UC to coordinate this action. Not where people could see, not with public accountability, but secretly behind the scenes so that there wouldn't be accountability. You know, I would definitely oppose. Yeah, I'm answering. Yeah, I'm getting to that. You know, I think that I, first of all, would not allow UC's actions to go silently. I think that, you know, unlike Kate, most of the council members have basically worked with UC, and when they found out that things were happening at People's Park, were silent. I would not be silent. I would stand out. I would encourage the city. I don't know if we could win this, but I would encourage the city to sue UC for their illegal activities on that night, both the towing of cars legally and the imposition of that blockade that was, I believe, illegal. I don't know if the city would have grounds to sue, but I would support at least exploring that. I would support adopting legislation that imposed local rules around non-Berkeley police officers engaging in those kind of stop and ask for papers tactics on our streets. That should not have been allowed, and our police should have stopped it. And I would absolutely also oppose any further action by our police to assist UC on this action. So UC, Berkeley police officers coordinated with UC to arrest people heading toward the park. And our city and the UC is saying, oh, that's not mutual aid. And so the UC doesn't have to pay us back for that. And so we're just going to pay for that to help UC. That's not acceptable. Our police shouldn't have been helping them, but also if we were going to, we definitely shouldn't be doing it on our dime. So those are all steps that I support to hold UC accountable.
Carol, our guest is here.
Well, part of our guest is here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have to end this portion of the meeting, and we have Assemblyman Kalra scheduled for actually starting a couple minutes ago, and he's about to pop in. And meanwhile, we have this other thing that has to happen. Susana, and then we'll go to Kalra.
Awesome, thank you. So I just want to give you a quick little Gaza update, and then I want to talk about a pretty amazing individual. So Gaza, lots happened since our last meeting. Palestine, the Secretary General of the United Nations made a point of coming out and telling the world that the Palestinian Resistance was not a terrorist organization. I don't know if you all know this, but 85% of the Hamas fighters are orphans who are actually created by Israel. Since the ICJ emergency ruling, Israel has killed 3,523 Palestinians, and that was only up to February 24th. That is per Al Jazeera, who is getting their information from pretty much the only reporting entity that's left reporting on these casualties at this point. And 50% less aid is actually getting in now than was getting in before the ICJ emergency provision. So things are not really good there. And ma'am, I'm hearing everybody talk about language and tone. So I have one thing I want you to think about. And Matthew asked this question, and several people have alluded to it. So think about Germany. Would the Jewish people that were in those German concentration camps appreciate our dickering about tone, safety, language, or would they want us to just save them and end the horror? I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at. So I want to talk about probably the biggest thing, aside from the flower massacre, that has happened in the last week. A week ago today, Aaron Bushnell, 25 years old, active duty U.S. Air Force member. He worked in military intelligence. He had a very high security clearance, and I personally know about those. My retired Navy chief husband had a very high top secret security clearance, so I know what goes into getting that and keeping it. I've also been interviewed multiple times for people that we know who are getting those security clearances. The military is thorough. So any conversations you may hear about state of mind, mental illness, anarchist, none of those are true. You don't get and keep that kind of security clearance with that in your background. So on last Sunday, if you all don't know, some of you probably may not know all the details. I caught this early because I basically am living and breathing genocide and apartheid these days. He walked to the Israeli embassy and lit himself on fire, and his last request was for a free Palestine. His social media post prior to that He asked the question, many of us likes to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow era or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is you're doing it right now. And that was a direct quote from his social media. A well-known Vietnamese monk said, quote, to express one's will by burning oneself, therefore, is not an act of destruction, but an act of construction. That is to suffer and to die for the sake of one's people. This is not suicide, end quote. Self-immolation is considered one of the most extreme methods of protest. Let's honor Aaron's dying wish. Sorry, y'all. It's very emotional. Let's honor his dying wish for his ashes to be spread on a free Palestine. So let's just take a moment. Silence for Aaron Bushnell. Thanks, everybody. Carol, back to you.
Thank you very much for bringing him present here. I know a lot of us have been talking about it, and it's very moving what he did. I mean, so courageous to do something like that. And I know the media is kind of trying to make it sound like he was a kook, like they always do. Okay, we're moving on in the meeting now. So we're going to talk about something that affects all of us a lot. And my question is, do you have good health care right now? Or do you have any health care? You know, my situation is I've got okay health care. It could be better, but I know so many people that don't have anything. So tonight we've got a very special guest here. I'm sure you guys have all heard of him. Assemblymember Kalra. He's been in the state assembly since 2016. And I believe since then he's been working on healthcare very much. He's got a long history. He worked, he has a legal career. He taught at San Jose State. He taught at a school for children in Washington, D.C. He's the first Hindu and also the first Indian American to be in our state assembly. To me, he's probably the strongest progressive in the assembly. So I'm very happy to have Kalra join us tonight.
Thank you so much, Carol. That's a very kind introduction, very kind of you. And fortunately, this year, as we push forward with CalCare, again, we have a lot of really good progressives in the legislature. And I'm very, very excited about that because, as you all know, the reality is that in order to get single-payer healthcare done, it's going to take political will. We know the data is on our side. We know it's a moral issue. We're on the right side of history. Anytime you look at any legitimate study, it shows how much we're frankly being robbed and fleeced, by the profiteers at the expense of lives, quite literally, and at the expense of our livelihoods. With family bankruptcies, the number one reason for family bankruptcies continues to be medical debt, even with the expansion of the Affordable Care Act, even with the expansion of Medi-Cal. People still can't make ends meet. They can't afford their health care. One of the most depressing statistics that I think all of you may be very familiar with, because I know that so many of you have been in this fight for a long time, including the fight regarding how we combat income inequality. The number one demographic entering into homelessness for the first time are seniors. And a big reason for that is because of healthcare and health issues. They run into massive debt. They can't keep up. they're being pushed out by their profiteering landlords, and they end up on the streets. And it all starts with usually a health issue. And so what I'm excited about this year with AB 2200, a couple of things. One is, as I started off saying, we do have a wonderful legislature. We've added some wonderful people that have joined in support of the cause, including Damon Connolly in Marin County, who's joined as a co-author right off the bat, Liz Ortega. There are so many folks that have just jumped on board day one that are new to the legislature. I'm mentioning names of folks that have joined since AB 1400, that have joined not in support, but to co-author. Corey Jackson, Tina McKinnon, Isaac Bryan. There are so many folks that are great champions for single-payer healthcare before they ever entered into the legislature. And so that's one thing that's different in a good way, is I think we have wonderful colleagues that really believe in healthcare justice. And I think over the last couple of years, folks have continued to see the inhumanity of our current system. Additionally, working with CNA, with our main sponsors, we've been able to get a lot of support, including from unions that are coming on board. Unite Here, Local 2 down in Los Angeles, the largest Unite Here in the nation, is joined on board. We're getting other unions that are coming on board. We're seeing a lot of local teachers unions. We're hoping to get larger teacher factions, CFT, CTA, to continue to support and get on board. We're adding certain elements. For example, we're adding a practicing physician to the CalCare board. It was an ask of some of the doctors and what have you. Makes sense to me. And so we've made that amendment to make sure that there's a practicing physician on the board. We've added elements to ensure gender affirming care, as well as elements regarding an advisory committee to ensure that we're taking a look at pensions and what happens with unions as we kind of make that transformation. We want to make sure that workers are made whole, because there's no doubt workers have invested a lot in their healthcare, which is the big reason why we're seeing more and more unions coming on board. They're realizing, wait a second, if we're putting so much of our money, so much of our bargaining resources into nickeling and diming benefits from healthcare organizations that we don't have much leverage over. And not only the union does, the employer doesn't either. So when you talk to business owners, they're also paying an arm and a leg for healthcare, and they don't have much control over how premiums go up year over year. And so there's a lot of really positive things I think that we can go into this year. The bill has been introduced. If we can have, I know my district director Celeste is here. Maybe if she can put in the chat the link to our landing page on my website that has a lot of the FAQs, a lot of the information about it. And so she'll do that in a moment. But take a look at the bill. Take a look at the text of the bill. I strongly believe, and I know CNA agrees, we both believe that this is the best single payer bill yet. And I'm excited about the opportunity to bring it forward to my colleagues. Of course, we have our dear friend Mia Bonta is now chairing the health committee, and so which is fantastic. And so if you don't see her name as a co-author, that's part of the reason why. So it's all in all a green flag. It's a good sign, because the bill is going to go before her and her committee, and so she's been a long time supporter of single payer healthcare. But it's not just up to her. It's up to we need a vote of the entire committee. But looking at the committee membership, I feel quite confident that we're going to be able to get there. Also, as you may recall, in addition to the health committee, as a policy bill, this bill would also have to go to appropriations. And another positive sign, again, it's always up to the vote of the members. So nothing is guaranteed at all. And I don't want to suggest that, but our appropriations shares now our dear friend Buffy Wicks, who's in the area as well, and who's also expressed support, for single payer healthcare. So I'm feeling, optimistic, cautious. I'm going to work very hard. My staff's going to work very hard, as we always have. I've already met with close to, I think I've already met with close to 20 of the Democratic Assembly members already, and I have about a half a dozen more meetings I'm scheduling over the next week or two. I'm going to keep meeting with folks, answer their questions, try to get them on board. The good news is that we have 19 of us total, including the co-authors, and there's at least one or two more that are probably likely to join soon as we head to the first committee. And there are a number of other folks that, although they may not co-author, have expressed that they would be supportive if it came before them for a vote. And ultimately, that's what matters. I know that a lot of folks go to their local members and say, oh, can you co-author? We need you to co-author. Look, we need people to vote for it. And there's a lot of reasons why, especially in some districts around the state. You have to remember that not all the districts are like being in San Jose or being in Oakland. Like, there are districts that are much more purplish, let me put it that way, where we do have supporters in terms of the legislature, but they have to be cautious because they get hit really hard. And so, it's not a matter of them, being scared, it's being practical. And we have to be protective and make sure that folks are going to be there when it comes down to the vote being taken. And so we have to make sure that if folks stand up and support it and vote for it, that we have their back. When the industry comes after them and drops $500,000 against them, we can't say, oh, well, they voted for CalCare. Our work here is done. It's the opposite of that. We have to show them that this is a community. This is a movement that's going to protect one another, including the members that are going to get hit really hard. I mean, I got like when I introduced 1400, I was getting hit very hard in text message campaigns and all that. And so I can only imagine how challenging it might have been in some districts that are far more conservative, or at least more middle of the road, when folks are being hit and they are, they actually have a lot of risk in terms of coming forward and supporting it, not in terms of their own personal position, but in terms of the political realities. And so I mentioned that to folks because we are the activists here. We're the ones that have to make sure that we show up for those that show up for the right cause and for the right issues. So that's a quick update. Oh, and it will be heard in Health Committee. It has not been referred yet to Health Committee, but if it's, we have a spring recess, I think the third week of March. So if it's not heard the first couple of weeks of March, then it'll be set at some point towards the end of March or very first week of April.
Close the door.
Coming soon.
Okay, Cheri has her hand up.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Ash. As you know, I've kind of been up there beating the drum for as many bills as we've had. So is it worthwhile for you to have Our Revolution and other supporters come up and meet with the legislatures and show the colors and, go up to Sacramento? What would you advise? How can we get this done?
Well, I mean, I think certainly as a statewide organization, having Our Revolution on board, having the chapters on board is incredibly helpful. But I think that it's even, more important to kind of show that support in the district. And so make sure that you have folks like, emailing, calling in, just like any other bill. Like we have folks that call in on bills all the time, email on bills all the time. And so what we do is we actually look and keep track only of those that are actually constituents in our district. And so we keep track of it. And so they will ask you where you live. And the reason why they're doing that is they want to know if you're a constituent. And so showing support at the local level, maybe asking for a meeting with either the member or one of their staff members, their district director, district staff at the local level is critically important. If they have a town hall or have neighborhood meetings, there's, just like any other community member, show up there and say, hey, we're here as part of Our Revolution or as part of a coalition supporting single-payer healthcare. I know in Santa Clara County, we have our Santa Clara County Single-Payer Healthcare Coalition who does that. They do a great job of showing up at different local events that different senators and assembly members have. And so those are all public events that you're being invited to. There's no reason why you can't kind of show your colors as well, right?
Nelson.
Thank you.
Nelson Tan, I see your hand is up.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Assemblymember Kalra and Ms. Walker. Okay, so I feel like right now, I did meet with Assemblymember Bonta on Friday when she had a lobby visit for this. And, her main talk was that we are in a $70 billion deficit. This is not going to change for a couple of years, right? And I think that there's a really hard conveyance that the model of this is predicated on scaling negotiations to lower costs, number one, and also a federal waiver system. And in fact, I think you guys understand that this is such a deep topic that Ohio is going to vote on this as well this year. Michigan is going to vote on this, and New York State is going to vote on this. And with that, it almost amalgamates almost 90 million, residents, right, across these states. I was wondering if there could be kind of an organizational alliance to make this more of states that are really willing to fight for this, if we could all amalgamate that negotiating power forward.
It's possible. I think that, it's interesting. I know it was a long time ago, but I visited Canada and met with Ontario and Quebec folks that are involved with the healthcare system there. And I think given the fact, especially given California, this is how I kind of see it. California is such a large economy and such a large entity in itself. I generally see that if we're going to get single payer in this nation, it's going to start with the states. Given how big of a state we are, I think California could do it alone. Now, that being said, if there's an opportunity, as other states move, for example, on pharmaceutical negotiations or other things like that, where there could be some coming together, absolutely. But that being said, I think that's a conversation that, that will have to be had once we get a policy passed. Because until we get a policy passed, until any of the states do, it's theoretical. And no one's going to put a lot of time and energy, including the federal government, into deep conversations about those kinds of collaborations until it's more real. And so the comment I have about the deficit, yes, we have a massive deficit. And keep in mind, this is a common refrain you're going to hear from a lot of legislators when we meet with folks in my district. We also say, just so you know, we have a massive deficit because a lot of the, it's a very different environment than the last couple of years, and we had a surplus. That being said, CalCare is a policy bill. It's not the funding bill. And the reason why that's important to note is that it actually in itself, it doesn't cost, it will cost money in terms of establishing the CalCare board, in terms of establishing a process to apply for waivers. So are there some costs there? Absolutely. There will be some costs involved, but this is essentially the way that it's written is that it doesn't get established until the funding source is determined. And so it's not a funding mechanism bill intentionally, because we know that we don't know how much we would be seeking in funding until we get Medicare waivers approved. We can't get Medicare waivers approved until a policy bill is passed and we apply for waivers. So I'm really trying to do things in the order that's been set forth by the federal government. That's the most logical manner in doing it. First, saying this is the policy that we want. A policy that has everybody in, no one out, a policy that has a true single payer system. And then when we have that set up, then we go to the federal government and apply for the Medicare waivers. And then right now, as it is, most of our healthcare is paid for by both federal and state money. Once we figure out what the exact numbers are, then we'll know how much we will have to go and get in terms of taxation.
Okay, the next question, Gordon Miller.
Yeah, I'll just make a historical note that single payer got going in Canada on a provincial basis.
Right.
Alberta was the first province to go, and it's crept out across the country. The question is, when SB 562 was moving along, one of the things they said is it's going to cost California X trillion dollars to implement this. And what they failed to say is how much we're spending now.
Yeah.
And that's much greater than what we would be spending. So are you prepared to deal with the sticker shock tactic that you're going to use?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all have to kind of have our talking points set on that, because you're right. I mean, right now, our current system cost us as much as $500 billion a year. And so, yes, the estimates of a single payer system range, from 360 to $400 billion a year. We don't know for certain in today's dollars. The most recent analysis that we did were a couple years ago. But one thing is for certain, our current system is more expensive than what a single payer system would be. And we have to be very clear on that consistently, because the first question and the last question I get oftentimes, how are you going to pay for it? And my first response is, well, how are we paying for our system right now? We're paying a lot for our system right now, and it's a system that leaves so many without healthcare. It's a system that leaves so many without true access. How are we paying for it now? We are paying for it right now with a massive government subsidy and massive personal, family, and business subsidy, employer subsidy as well, massive. And they're running to the bank. The insurance companies are running to the bank. Hospitals, pharmaceutical companies are running to the bank. I think it was, I just saw recently, someone might correct me on the numbers, but on Eliquis, I think it costs like $7,000 for the Eliquis prescription, while in Canada it's $900. It's something very similar. It's pretty dramatic. And that's just one example of one pharmaceutical. But the reality is that you look at how much procedures cost and what have you. And the other thing I'll mention too is not only how expensive our current system is, but when folks say, well, look how long the line, wait, this, that, and the other. First of all, let's remember the whole idea of long waits and all that in Canada, that was a strategic effort by insurance companies to plant that in the American mind. And how do we know that? Well, talk to Wendell Potter, who worked for Cigna, and his job was to discredit the Canadian healthcare industry and healthcare system. That was his job. And so we know that just like the tobacco industry, just like the oil industry, they're gaslighting us all the time, right? But secondly, why are we comparing ourselves to what other systems lack when we have the ability, especially since we spend so much in our system right now? We have hospitals already done, they're already set up. We have clinics, we have facilities. We already have a system set up that is so amenable to shifting to a single payer system with the highest quality of care. So let's not compare ourselves to what other systems are lacking. Let's build a system of what we want to see in an ideal system, and let's fight for that.
What I think would be good to have, maybe CNA can work this one up, is facts at the ready, because this is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do have FAQs. If you go to the landing page that was put in the chat, and we're continuing to add to them as we hear more and more feedback from folks. So we can always add additional items to it.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, do we have another question? Well, you're getting off easy. Thank you so much. And I know some of us will see you up at something in Sacramento related to healthcare one of these days soon.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much, and keep pushing, and let's make sure that we have a good outcome on Tuesday. And after that, just keep fighting. We need everybody. This is a movement that we need to beat back hundreds of billions of dollars. And so it's going to take each and every one of us. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, folks, we're moving on to one more thing. We have Javanka Beckles here tonight, who is running for state senate. And she's endorsed by us and Our Revolution National. Javanka.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for the endorsement. I'm really grateful for that. I just actually had my hand up earlier because I was just, thinking about the process, how we have the opportunity to hear from candidates, but we really don't have an opportunity to deliberate, and I just think that that's such an important step in the endorsement process, as opposed to just hearing them and then we vote. I mean, I had comments that I just didn't feel, I felt like it would be best served as a private discussion aside from the candidate. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I was just wondering if we could, even if 10 minutes worth of deliberation, because You know, we heard for some interesting candidates, and I think that, you know, many of us probably have some comments that we may not have felt comfortable sharing in front of the candidates, and you know, many of the groups that I'm a part of, the RPA, DSA, you know, we all kind of have an opportunity to sort of deliberate, and I'm wondering, is that something that we could do? Do we need a motion for that? So that's my question.
Well, you know, I don't think we need a motion for it. It's not something we have done in the past. And I know some of us need to get to another meeting. We're
Sure.
already, however, I'd be willing to stay on for up to 10 minutes. But we can't separate between who's actually a member and who's not at this point. So I would say whoever would like to stay on can stay on. Do you want to start the discussion?
Yeah, so we have three
Shall I
candidates.
stop the recording?
Yes. Yes.
And Carol, how about announcements? Should we do that first?
That's it. Yeah. Okay.
I think the announcements can come after.
So I'm gonna stop the recording.
Yeah, because we don't, this is sort of a membership driven
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.